wrote the screenplay for their first Moana, and is also currently the executive producer and co-writer of Moana 2. The producer, Yvett Merino, received an Oscar for her work on Encanto, produced the short Once Upon a Studio. If you haven't seen Once Upon a Studio, how many people have seen Once Upon a Studio? Good. For those of you who have, make sure you get a chance to see it. And she's also currently producing, you guessed it, Moana 2.
Yes.
Please welcome Mary Bush, Yvett Merino, filmmakers behind Disney Animation's 2025 feature, Zootopia 2.
That's right.
All right.
Everybody.
Hi.
Well, before we start talking about the film, let's talk about a little bit of chronology, just so we get an idea of who you are and where you're from. So, Jared, tell us, how did you come to Walt Disney Animation Studios? What's your chronology?
Yeah, so I actually joined Disney about 13 years ago. Before that, I was a live action writer, but I really wanted to get into Disney animation. They make the best movies in the world, and so really what I did was just harass nonstop Disney for weeks and months, and managed to get myself an interview with Byron Howard for a movie he was working on with some talking animals. And we hit it off, and I got hired. That was for Zootopia, and it was a contract for 8 weeks. And I just locked myself in an office and didn't let them take me away.
That was a long 8 weeks.
Yeah, it was.
And Yvette, tell us how you started with the Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Well, I graduated college and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and tried a few things, and ended up getting a temp assistant job at Disney Animation, and then I got hired, and I said, oh, I'll stick around for about 5 years, see where it takes me. And that was 28 years ago, so it's been 28 years. And
28?
Yes. I started when I was 2, so. And then, been working there ever since. Love it, love it.
All right, well, Zootopia 2 isn't your first collaboration, so let's go into that. Before we dive into Zootopia, let's talk about Moana. Was that your first collaboration now?
Yes, it was.
That's when the magic happened. And Yvette and I got to work. So it got to work together, and I would say that that's the reason why Yvette and I also worked on Encanto, because she's the best producer in the world.
Oh, you're so nice. He's not that nice in person.
It's true.
Yes. On Moana, I was the production manager on the original Moana, and Jerry came on to write, and I was like, who's this Jerry Bush guy? And immediately the story, everything just started clicking and running, and it was such a fun time to work with Jared during that time. And we were so excited when we actually got to work on Encanto together, because I knew him and Byron were working on something, and I kept like, what you guys doing? What you doing? You need some help? So it's great. I love working with Jared.
And if anyone's recording this, please send me those videos of Yvette saying those things about me. I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, and then as a production person, Yvette, what is the challenge about working with creative people? How do you give them room to create and yet still get the job done?
This is my favorite question. This is Jared's favorite question. No, really, the thing about working at Disney Animation is you are working with people who are all so passionate about what they do, from production people to artists to the engineers that we work with. Every single person there is helping to get the movie done. And so, as a production person, our job is not to set the deadline and be like, this is when it has to happen. It can happen. We talk about it a lot. Is we schedule and we plan and we adjust. And really, our job is to give the creative team the space to be creative. It's very hard to be creative under a very, very strict deadline. And so, although sometimes deadlines are good, Jared. But so really our job is just to really give them the space to play and to be creative without all of those boundaries, because that's, I think, where the best ideas come from.
And speaking of scheduling and deadlines and adjusting, Jared, you were the writer and co-director for Zootopia, which came out in March of 2016. but then you were also the writer on Moana, which came out in November the same year. Now, how the heck did you get all that done? I can't even get my Christmas cards out on time.
It was a very fun challenge. I'd say the real answer to that is I just really love both of these movies, and when you really love something from a creative space, it makes it very, I'd say, it makes the writing go faster. I think both of these movies have incredible characters. I love writing for Maui and Moana. That dynamic is so fun and entertaining. And I'd say equally, Judy Hopps and Dick Wilde, that odd couple pairing is one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. To be able to come back to both of those movies, I think for both of us, is it's so exciting to continue those stories. So I like to have a lot of spinning plates, and I think big challenges like that are something that I really enjoy. But I also say both of those movies, hundreds of people also work on both those movies. For all of our films, 600-700 people work on them, and they really go from movie to movie. So I'd say that's something that everybody does, and it's something very unique and special to Disney animation.
I always ask every writer this question because what do you do when you're facing a blank page? Now, it may be a little different in animation because you have a whole story team trying to work together and come up with ideas, but tell us how you face a blank page and how you work with the story team.
Yeah, I have actually a very specific system for that. So if anyone here is a writer or a creative person, yeah, the blank page it can be pretty brutal. What I will actually do is I will just write as fast as I can, as terrible as possible, so that it's no longer a blank page. Because if I write something very quickly, for instance, like one of these scripts, can take weeks. I'll try to do the whole thing in a week, and it will be unreadable. It will be an embarrassment. But I do that because I just want to get some thoughts out and not worry about it. I find the rewriting process is one of my favorite things. Typically, we'll do literally hundreds of drafts of a script over the course of the 3 to 5 years of making these movies. So it's really a matter of just not being afraid to put something down that isn't perfect. That's usually why a blank page is scary, because you're trying to make it amazing instead of just learning as you're going through.
And then talking about that first Zootopia, you're working so hard on it with so many people on that. Every film is sort of an unknown quantity. And so when did either of you know that Zootopia was something a little different than the others? Or did you?
Well, I'll say that early on Zootopia, it's a very unique type of movie. The first film is one where there's noir elements. Obviously, there's this really fun buddy comedy that's happening. There's a commentary about human nature. It's a big friendship story. It's a world, basically a different world of animals, whole created space. There's all of these different things going on. It's a lot in that soup. And I think early on we realized if we can make all those things gel into one story, we'd have something pretty special. And that's, frankly, that was really hard to do. We had many screenings where we'd say, well, maybe we need to take the mystery element out, or maybe this other thing's not working, we just have too much going on, or we shouldn't go meet that other character because we don't have enough screen time. But everyone really believed in trying to do all of those things. I think what makes Zootopia so special, it is kind of jam-packed with a lot. There's so much entertainment and character and world specificity. And you want to spend time with those animals because they're all unique, but they feel like, oh, I know how a camel would run a marathon in the desert. And that's what it would do if it was running around on 2 legs. So all of those things were so fun and entertaining. I think about halfway through we realized that we could jam all those things into one story and it would work. We believed in the potential of it, but it wasn't until about halfway through that we thought it would actually be able to execute.
Yvette, in watching how that film was coming together, what were your reactions, and when did you say, wait a minute, this is something?
Well, what's exciting and why I love working at Disney Animation is because everyone works so hard on all of the films. Zootopia was happening. I was still working on the first Moana, the original Moana, and I was watching it and I'd hear things and we'd get to see parts of it throughout, and I was like, oh, that's super funny. And when I saw the whole thing come together, it was real. Like my husband and I were at the wrap party, we sat there, we're like, oh my gosh, that was so funny, and it was so good, and it's so meaningful, and so there's so much emotion. This Jared Bush guy, he might have something. So, with all the films in Disney Animation, we all work so hard and we put everything into it. And so and then we kind of send them out into the world, and we hope that they connect with people. Zootopia was really special because it truly, we saw it just really connect with people all over the world.
And the same thing about the first Moana. That just when that came out in the same year, there's two very different films and how they appeal to audiences everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I feel like the team at Disney Animation does so well is these great world buildings, and the world of Moana and the world of Zootopia are so very different, and but they are worlds that I feel like I know I want to go into, I want to step into. Believe me, I want to go to Motunui. I want to go sit on the beach in Motunui. But I also want to go in the land of Zootopia and visit all the different lands and see all the different scales of things there. So I think it's one of the things at Disney Animation that we do really well is building these worlds that people want to go into.
And I think on top of that, it really speaks to Disney Animation as a place that can do those very different tones of movies and put them out in the same year. And again, a lot of the same people work on both of those things, and people's ability to switch over. I think so much of it is about understanding the tone of the world, the characters, emotionally how you want to feel, and the animators at Disney Animation are the best in the world at that, so it's a real joy to work with them.
And of course, Zootopia had that Nick Wilde as a fox, so any film that has a fox in it.
His name is Fox, guys.
Anyway, I know that people have been tired or don't want to talk about Bruno.
Okay.
But let's talk about Encanto for a while, because you two worked much more closely on Encanto. Let's say, how did that all start?
Oh man.
Well,
Yeah, get it.
I mean, you want to start with how you guys started?
Sure. Well, here's what I'd say. So, as it was interesting, as Zootopia was wrapping up, Byron and I started talking about we wanted to do a musical, and obviously I just finished up on Moana, but Byron and I were both giant musical fans, and so the idea of doing a musical made a lot of sense. I had just coming off working on Moana with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he wanted to do a musical. We wanted to set it somewhere that we hadn't been before, and so finding a movie setting it in Colombia was this really fun opportunity to bring in some amazing music. So very early on, we started to develop that story and really wanted to think about it as almost like a stage musical. It's like a very different type of musical than Disney Animation typically does. It's a massive ensemble piece. Obviously Mirabel has this giant family. That was another. I think we just continually like a lot of challenges. Usually wouldn't have that many family members. It's a lot of work for the entire team, but that's also what made it special. So I'd say early on, coming into that role, I'd say we really wanted Yvette very badly. I was just coming up working on Moana with her, and so knowing that we already had the best producer in the world, it made a lot of sense for us to team up again. And like she said, she loves me, so I knew that would work out well.
Purely, I do. Yeah, I think, and so they were working on it. I obviously, like we said, we worked together on Moana, and Lin-Manuel Miranda was on Moana, and I kind of knew they were circling. And I had actually worked with Byron on Tangled years ago, and so any opportunity to work with Byron again was on my list, and he came along. So really, I kind of was inching around saying, oh, what are you guys working on? And it really was one of the best experiences of my life to be able to work with both Jared and Byron on Encanto. And again, we made it during a very unique time. We thought when we started, we thought, oh, okay, we had all these plans, we're gonna do this in the studio, and then COVID happened and we all went home. But what I love, it really just was one of those things for me personally that it gave me something every single day that I would look forward to, that I would get to work on, even though it was on Zoom.
And I understand, Jared, you and Byron are accomplished trombone players. So, did you ever serenade Yvette with your trombone, even if on Zoom?
I have played trombone, but I will say this is a true story. On Encanto, the day that they were recording the brass for the entire soundtrack, I was supposed to be there on that recording stage. And what I did not know is they had actually written a part for me to play but I didn't know that, and I was super sick, and I was like, I'm really sorry I can't come in. They're like, we literally wrote you a part, so I missed my moment. So I don't think I'll ever have that again, and that's probably a good thing because I would have ruined that movie.
Unless it's Anthem too, you know, just
All right,
yeah, just putting it out there. What was your favorite part? Was it the music on Encanto? Or
man.
what about it?
Well, I'd say all of it. We have this immense luxury of working with incredible actors, and every single time we head into another story, we get to spend time with people. It's really, they become a family to you, and we've been really lucky with all of our films that we have these amazing casts, and so I would say being in the room, working with Stephanie Beatrice is just an absolute joy. John Leguizamo, working with him is an absolute joy. The entire cast was so fun the entire way, and so I'd say that's a huge part for me is being able to work with the cast, but honestly, the entire studio came together so much. It's the most beautiful movie I've ever seen, and that's so many people working really hard to create something special. So it's kind of hard to isolate it down to one thing. I kind of love all of it.
Yeah, I would say, and to go to that point, to me, it's just really the process because it's literally, I'm so grateful I have the opportunity to sit in a room where someone says, hey, what if we do this? What if this happened? And someone sketches it out real quick, and I will be able to watch that thread. And someone who is not an artist, I don't draw, but to watch that thread go all the way from that little conversation to the screen and the final frame, it's really the most amazing thing to witness.
And again, you're not really trying to make classic films. You don't set out to say, I'm going to make a classic film. You just try to make a story and tell a story that really appeals to you. And so, how do you try to keep that out of your head about, will this be a classic or not?
Honestly, I think what we are really trying to do is make stories that we emotionally connect with, and we hope audiences will emotionally connect with. I'd say there's a lot of internal pressure because everyone there is so talented. They want to bring their very best, and so I think the hope is, can we make something that we can all be proud of? So I think that's really the big thing. It's I think we thought too much about how it sort of fits with everything, and is this, and thinking about it going around the world, that's a lot of pressure, and creatively that can be kind of stifling. So I really think we had the luxury of watching rough drafts of this movie probably 8 times over the 3 to 5 years that we make it. And when you're watching it, you personally know when you're connecting to something, when a character says something and it makes you laugh, or a moment happens and it makes you cry. You can't fake it. And so I think what we're really trying to do is get to the moment where when we're watching it, we feel all those things authentically. And that's really the goal.
That's the sincerity. So if you're trying to come up with something sincere, I think very few artists ever say, I'm going to create that classic. I think it's what Led Zeppelin said, that Stairway to Heaven, we were working on making a classic. No, leave that to Led Zeppelin. Disney animation's a little bit different. You talked about trying to work on stories that connect with people and stuff. So yesterday you revealed some information about Zootopia 2. Now, for those of you who may not have been there at the Honda Center last
Who was at the Honda Center last? Anybody? Oh my gosh, okay, great.
But there are still a few that might not have. Could you just kind of retell your story of Zootopia?
I will. Okay, so, as you guys know, we have to keep these things secret for so long, and it's been literally years that we've been working on this already and not being able to say anything. Saying some of the big announcements about Zootopia that came out last night were that we're going to be bringing reptiles into the world of Zootopia. So in the first film, we designed it always with that in mind. This is not actually a new idea. This is something like, definitely one day we're going to be able to visit reptiles. How we do that, how they come into our story, we have to keep that somewhat secret. But I think the really exciting thing is that Ke Huy Quan is going to be playing our first snake, Gary the snake. He's a highly venomous pit viper. And Nick and Judy will be on his trail in this story, and may have to go undercover to new locations. If you've been over there and seen it, there's an area called Marsh Market. This is a neighborhood of Zootopia for the semi-aquatic animals. So you're going to get your seals and your sea lions and your walruses. I'm really trying to get some manatees in there. But yeah, it's really exciting to take Nick and Judy to these new places with these new characters.
I can see you can name the manatee Hugh for humanity, of course.
Wow, oh, okay, nice.
Anyway, and there are a lot of reptile lovers out there. We have a whole.
Do we have any reptile lovers here today, or only mammal fans? Reptiles? Nobody. Everybody loves reptiles. Okay, great.
We have a whole convention out in Pomona for reptiles and things like that. So it'll be interesting. So this will broaden the world of Zootopia.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big part of this is in the first film, you got to visit one city, and actually only a couple neighborhoods in one city. But the truth is, Zootopia is just one city on one continent on an entire world of animals. And so I think in this story, we may start hinting at what lies beyond.
Okay. And not to get too detailed about it, but can you recall what that first book with that idea you might have had for Zootopia 2? What really?
Yeah, I think similar to Moana and Moana 2 in that we're trying to continue this story, these characters. I think for Nick and Judy, there's this odd couple, and by the end of that story, they finally started working with each other. And you love that so much, but what happens next? I can tell you guys that this movie picks up very shortly after the first film in terms of what's going on for them. And I'd say, without revealing too much more, they still have a lot to figure out, I think, both with each other and themselves.
Okay, well, I'll still push for extra foxes, though, because I'm sitting right here.
Yeah, I get it.
Anyway, and then so let's talk about in general. What's your advice or suggestions for people who want to get into the animation industry today?
Well, I think, there's many different paths to roles and positions that you want to be in. Again, when I started Disney Animation, I never imagined that I would go into production and be able to work with Jared Bush. But there are so my advice is just be open to where the world takes you. I know we all think, hey, this is exactly what I want to do and I only want to do this. And that's great if you have that drive, but be open. The world will take you where you need to go, and just be open. And kind of if a door opens, don't just ignore it because you were so focused on going one way. Go through the door and explore and see where it takes you.
And I'd say for me, for any of you out there or anybody that wants to get involved, that wants to come to animation or is creative or wants to write, tell stories, I think the most important thing is to bring yourself to it. There's, I think, a misconception that Hollywood doesn't want your stories. They desperately do, and more specifically, they want you. They want your unique voice. We need to understand how your brain works. That we need to bring that in. That's something we do every day with our entire story trust. It's made up of individual people that have different ways of looking at the world and different sensibilities and different personal stories. There's nothing more important than being true to yourself and bringing that into any creative endeavor that you have.
And what is it, Jared, about animation that is so special to tell stories? Because everything can be done with what we call live action, which is computer animation to make things look like actual live action. But what is it about animation that is so special?
I think the most special thing is it is highly collaborative. There's no way to make an animated movie without the collaboration of many people. And so for me personally, before I came to Disney, I never understood how they could write one of those scripts, because as a screenwriter for myself, usually scripts, mostly 100 pages, 110 pages, but I'd look at a movie from Disney Animation or from Pixar, and I was like, there's so much detail in everything I'm seeing. These scripts have to be like 900 pages long. How is this possible? And the way it's possible is the 700 people that work on this movie add themselves into the story. They are constantly plussing or putting in details in. Everyone together is trying to make something that matters. And so I'd say for me, that is what makes it so special and unique, is this incredible collaboration with people that are at the very top of the game.
Is that the same for you, Yvette? Is something about this cadre of people?
Yeah, I think so. When I started, and I was like, I'll hang out for 5 years. It goes by so quickly, but there's something unique about working in a place where people are so passionate about what they want to do, about what they're doing, and they want to be there. And and I've said this for years and years. Disney has a knack of hiring really good people. And so, you know, we've kind of built this community within Disney Animation, and you know, I've been there for so long. People have seen me get married, they've seen me bring my kids home, like, and you build these lifelong relationships with your work community, and it's such a special, unique place to be.
Are there any particular memories that you have that you kind of latch on to as some of the fun times that you've experienced?
Yeah, you know, there are a ton of fun times, and it's, you know, every show has your unique thing. But one of my favorite things that we do at Disney Animation, which ARL is very involved with, is the annual caricature show, and it's where artists all over the studio do caricatures of different people within the studio.
Brutal caricatures.
Brutal. I'm always like, every time I trip, I'm like, did someone see that? Because if not, it'll end up on the caricature show. But really, it's such a fun time because, you know, we make a little party of it. We have all the caricatures up, and you walk around, you see everybody's amazing artwork and their caricatures of all the different people you get to work with.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, I mean, there's so much that is fun to do there. We do so much research. We spend years and years researching for any film, whether that is taking a trip to Colombia or bringing in animals. That's some of my most favorite parts, because you discover things that you just can't do by looking at it online or reading it in a book. A couple weeks ago, we got to hang out with a giant pig in my office. And like, how?
What was his name?
Oh gosh. Oh no. Bacon? What was his name? I can't remember. Was it Dorothy?
Dorothy, I think?
It was, alright, it's Dorothy the pig. Like, that's amazing. I think one of the most special experiences I had for the 100th anniversary of Disney, there was this nighttime spectacular called Wondrous Journeys. I don't know if you guys got to see it or not. It's this amazing firework projection spectacular at Disneyland. And the day before it went public, they brought some of us down, they shut down the park, and they played it just for us. And so to see 100 years of Disney history, all of the movies I grew up with, and then movies that we've been able to work together on, characters that we like fell in love with as kids and then spent time with ourselves, one of the most amazing moments of my life.
Well, that segues into where I work with the Animation Research Library, because Zootopia, Byron and the teams did research with old animation from other films.
I remember.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're stepping into the world of talking animals. That's Disney's bread and butter. So, you know, going back and saying, what can we learn from past films? I'm a huge fan of The Jungle Book. It's the first Disney animated movie I ever saw. It's still my favorite. Right, yeah. So, loved it. I mean, whenever we looked at like original selves from that, it's one of the most exciting things. But how do animals move around? How do we do it differently? What's going to feel like classic Disney, or what's the spin on classic Disney? So I'd say it's really important as we're moving through. We don't want to repeat ourselves, but certainly we have this amazing legacy that's really fun to lead on. There's some boarding for the Honda Center if you can't hear it.
And Yvette, have you, I can't remember, you've been to the ARL.
I have.
Yes. What was your opinion of being able to hold on to that legacy to build on top of that?
Yeah, I think we've been to the ARL over the years, the Artist Research Library, where they kind of hold all of our history there. But working on Once Upon a Studio was one of the ones like that really took me back, because I was working on a short that celebrated the past 100 years of Disney animation, and so having the opportunity to work on that film and really reaching out to the experts like Fox at the ARL about, hey, you know, what's the history of this, and can we find these model sheets from the animation, from the films and shorts that were done so many years ago. It was, it's one of the unique things that we have, because we have so much history. But that's why What's Fun Studio was such a special project for me, because I had the opportunity to work on things and work with characters that happened way before my time.
And in talking about, let's go a little bit to Zootopia too, and animation. Is there anything that limits animation at all in your mind?
The only thing that limits the animation is just the time that we have to do it in. And that's usually, I think it's usually like we never finish our movies. We just run out of time and they're fried out of our fingers and put into a theater, which is happening on many fronts right now. But I'd say to me, that's the biggest one. I think literally anything is possible. It's why I love the medium of animation. It is the most fun thing in the world. Anything you can imagine can be created. And frankly, sometimes we'll be sitting in the story room and you'll have an idea, and like Yvette said, someone will sketch it in the moment, in real time, right in front of you and show it to you, and that becomes something that's in the movie immediately. So I don't think there's any boundaries at all, aside from, you know, how much time you have, and I think the passion of the team that's building it.
I feel like I've already answered my question, but what's your favorite part of the process? Is it those moments, or is there something else about the process of creating these animated films that you really appreciate or love more than anything else?
Man, honestly, I really love all of it. I love the entire process from the beginning to the end. It's always different. You know, we spend 4 or 5 years working on a movie. It takes so long. Every single day you get something a little different, whether that's we're really trying to figure out what the story is. Oh, now we're seeing storyboards for the first time. Now it's being edited. It's going into layout and things are being animated, and here comes the music. So there's always something really exciting. I will be honest though, working on it for so long, what you really want to do is when it's done and it goes out into the world, that you hope it connects with people. So like moments like this, spending time with you guys, it's really special because you really hope that it matters to somebody. And so an amazing part of that process is getting those feelings back, hearing someone say, I really related to that character, or that really made me think something, or I was going through a rough patch and that movie meant something to me. Like that's a huge part of why we make these stories.
Anything that for you?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think once it goes out in the world, and you know, I feel like we've all worked so hard on this film, and we're just gonna put it out. We hope it connects. So really being able to connect with you all, I really agree with. I like the last year when we're making a film. It's chaotic and it's stressful and everything is up in the air and you don't know how you're gonna finish it. And you're like, I don't know what's happening, but it is really one of my favorite parts because, you know, you have the whole crew there working on the film and you have everybody. It's such a unique place to be where you have 400 or 500 people all working towards one common goal. And it's the magic that happens within the studio.
It's that connection internally and then reaching for the connection externally. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Zootopia 2 or?
Well, yeah, I will just tell you guys that our teams right now are building something pretty spectacular. If you guys were able to be at the Honda Center last night and saw some of that work, I would just say what we're trying to accomplish in this movie is, I think, pretty extraordinary. There's going to be so many returning legacy characters. So if you guys have your favorites from the first film, I think you're going to pretty much see all those favorites in this film. And then we're adding maybe 1 million more characters into it.
Not a million.
That Yvette has to pay for because she's the producer. And I'm very excited to add all of them in. But I'm really excited for that. Jennifer and Jason are already in the recording booth, which is just a delight. Just really can't wait for everybody to see it. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And if you have any more boxes,
Yeah,
still here.
I know, I get your emails all the time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for just a look at Zootopia 2. So
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.